Ahoy! It's your old buddy Hambone here to chat you up about a killer event being thrown by our friends over at Cadabra Records. Coming this June 2nd and 3rd to Cathedral Event Center in Hamilton, New Jersey is Nightlands Festival, a celebration of some of the greatest weird fiction through words, music, and art. It will be unlike anything you've ever seen in one of the most memorable live events you'll ever attend. Over the course of 2 days, attendees can expect to see some of the finest voiced actors of the genre perform tales of classic and modern horror, with each performance accompanied by a live musical score and introduced by a scholar on the subject. Whether you're a longtime fan of Cadabra Records or new to the label, you will not want to miss this historic event, which features special guests, panels, an artist alley, and dealer's tables. Your Nightland Festival weekend pass includes a Nightland Festival laminate, program guide, tote bag, and an exclusive 7-inch record only available at this event. H.P. Lovecraft's The Terrible Old Man, read by Andrew Lehman, score by Chris Bozzone, while supplies last. On top of all this, you'll experience live performances that include H.P. Lovecraft's The Lurking Fear and the Dunwich Horror, M.R. James' Count Magnus, and Algernon Blackwood's The Willows, and so much more. For tickets, visit nightlandsfestival.com.
This is the Vintage RPG Podcast, your source for the best in classic and contemporary RPGs. With your hosts, Hambone and Stu.
Welcome to the Vintage RPG Podcast, coming at you again from the clubhouse hidden somewhere in the swamps of New Jersey. I'm John Hambone McGuire, and with me, as always, is the founder and publisher of Unwinnable. When he told me he was going to teach his kid how to play RPGs, I said, Stu, he's too young for Thaco. Stu Horvath.
He is definitely too young for Thaco. I think I'm too young for Thaco when it comes down to it.
I'm 44. I'm way too young for Thaco. How you doing today, man?
Pretty good. I'm hanging in there. You know, the swamps of New Jersey are blooming into allergy season. So if I sound a little stuffy, that's why, because everything's covered in yellow dust.
It is so bad. I went out the other day to move my car, and I opened the door, and it was just like a complete layer of yellow dust everywhere. And I'm like, and I'm dead. I'm dead on the way out to the car. I've blown any save that I could possibly make just by opening the front door.
I walk my kid to and from school twice, and it's just like, and every morning basically I wake up and I think, oh God, am I sick? And I'm not. Like I get over it over the course of the day, and then it creeps back in at night. It's God, I just want to we should cut down all the trees and make them into RPG books.
That's it. I mean, we already have like a blood feud going on with trees, as is with all the books that we produce and buy. I will say this though, it's funny because we were like, I don't know, 3 years into COVID and whatever. It's become like an afterthought for a lot of people. However, there is still that moment you're like, am I allergic to something or is it COVID? But I can tell you definitively, this time of year, especially in New Jersey, if you see yellow, let it mellow. You don't got COVID. You have seasonal allergies.
And you know what is actually very helpful this time of year when you go outside? A mask.
Who'd have thunk it?
Yeah. Yeah. Like my mom was going someplace and she's got terrible allergies too. It's actually hitting her more hard than me this year. And she was like, I got to wear a mask when I go out. It's like, well, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Like we have carpenter bees, and Daisy the other day was just like, why don't we use the shop vac on them? I was like, that's genius. Why didn't I ever think of that?
Yeah. Life hacks. Gotta love it. Anyway, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about Amazing Tales, which is by a fellow named Martin Lloyd, who I know nothing about. But he wrote this pretty cool hardcover role-playing game. The subtitle is A Game for Children Who Love Adventures. So, of course, as soon as my kid was born, we were joking about when he was going to play Masks of Nyarlathotep. Because, of course, he's going to eventually. So it was sort of like an inevitability that he would get introduced to the hobby. And I think I've had this book kicking around for a couple years now, just kind of sitting there waiting. And I don't get too excited about things. Generally, I'm not an excited person. I don't think.
Definitely not.
Very measured. And Jer has definitely taught me to be careful about getting excited about doing things with him, because inevitably, when I'm excited to sort of introduce him to something or try and show him something new that I'm excited about, it generally doesn't go well. So role-playing games was a big one, and I was just sort of like, I was really nervous about it. I didn't want to do it. So it's just been sitting around for a long time for me kind of waiting for the exact right moment. And that moment came this past weekend. It was pretty great. I don't know. It was a big moment. Like it's probably the biggest like introduction moment of like I'm not really into like making my likes and dislikes Jer's likes and dislikes. I want him to just kind of be into stuff that he wants to be
Right.
into. But he does have sort of like this osmosis effect where like he knows so much of this crap because it's like laying around the house. So like he knows all this D&D terminology and monsters and stuff, and he kind of gravitates to a lot of the cartoons that have like a little bit of like he loves Centaur World, which is definitely not like my speed because it's very musical theatery, and I just don't dig that.
No.
But it also like the overarching storyline and structure of it is very much like fantasy epic, and it's really quite good. And Jared's funny too because he's just like I catch him singing the song periodically, and there's this one where it's just like it's a mole, and his name is like Comfortable Doug, and he sings like the Comfortable Doug song, and it's very catchy. And I hear Jared singing it all the time. I was like, "Hey, is Comfortable Doug your favorite song?" He's like, "No, the Nowhere King song, because the Nowhere King is the villain, and he's like badass. He's like this gooey elk monster demon thing." He's like, "No, I love the Nowhere King song because he's like that one's the cool one." And I was like, no, you don't. You like the Comfortable Doug song. Like, it's about a mole who wants to be comfortable. Like, there's no shame in that, kid.
Yeah, we all want to be comfortable. Now I'm on IMDb. Look at this friggin' show up.
It is seriously a lot. If you do not like musical theater, you are not going to like it. Like it is like I could not sit through an episode without kind of like just like, oh God, I can't
I've
handle
seen
it.
this. Yeah, I saw the first season of this. It was like it is like a weird show. Like I guess to describe it to people who like may have no idea what we're talking about. It's about a hardened warhorse that suddenly gets taken away from the battle and finds herself in a land inhabited by silly singing centaurs of all shapes and sizes. Like every creature in here is a centaur except for like the bad guy. And yeah, wow, it's got 2 seasons.
Yeah. And it's like 2 seasons. It was like a whole arc. Yeah, horse is trying to get back to rider, and it's just it's really good. The whole thrust of it is great. It's just like it's told, so much of it is told through song, and I hate storytelling through song. So yeah, so Jared is sort of just vaguely interested in these things, but I've not focused that interest in particular in any particular way on sort of the fantasy role-playing stuff that I like. So I was really nervous about doing that. I kind of introduced him to Star Wars a little too early, I think, and that like just became like an obsession with him, and I like unleashed like an apocalyptic force.
That's it.
So I was just very much like, oh man, I gotta be more careful with this role-playing thing. So I was really hesitant to introduce him. But the system, there's a whole bunch of kid geared systems out there, and I found it a little bit overwhelming because I felt that I just didn't know what he would be capable of. He doesn't know how to read yet. He's sort of reading, like he's doing all those intermediary reading steps, but he cannot read as like, is required by a lot of role-playing games. And that's why Amazing Tales is great, because you don't need to know how to read.
That's cool.
I can't remember the Mont Cook one. It's like say no
thank
to
you,
evil.
evil.
No, thank you, evil. Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
has a little bit more of a system. Than you need to track things with points and stuff, and you kind of have to like look at a sheet and kind of know what you're parsing there. And I think that's a little too advanced for him right now. And is probably like the next step, right? Like I feel like Amazing Tales is a really good introduction to the basics of role playing. It's essentially a storytelling game. It's going to take me 1 minute to tell you the mechanics. You start by sitting down with the kid and saying, like, what kind of story do you want to tell? In Jer's case, of course, he wanted to tell something about robots and floating cities and science fictioning. So you set the parameters for the story first, and then you create a character, which is basically a name. In Jer's case, it was Ultratron the robot.
There you go.
Which he shouted, he like spit it right out like he'd been waiting. But then at the same, like a second later, he goes, I don't know if that's so good. I didn't think, I couldn't come up with anything better. I was like, no, Ultratron's great. And then you list 4 things that the character can do well. In Jer's case, he picked code cracking with his mega mind, fighting enemies, helping, just broadly helping, and detecting poisons through technology scans.
Okay.
I don't know why. And then what you do is you just assign each one of those skills a die in sort of descending order. So the one you're best at gets a D12. The one he's second best at gets a D10, a D8, and a D6. I was surprised because I thought Jared would pick fighting enemies would be his top, but it wasn't. It was code cracking was his top. Helping was his second.
Aw.
And yeah, they surprise you. And fighting enemies was his D8. And then finding poisons was D6. And then that's it. You start telling the story, and as the storyteller, as the GM basically. And then and you constantly ask the kid what they do. And whenever they come across something that seems like there's no sure result for what they want to do, you find the skill that applies best, and you roll that die. 1 and 2 is a failure, 3 and up is a success. Easy.
It's great.
And that's it. So Jer kind of it was interesting watching him because he's used to sort of A, playing by himself because he's an only child, and B, playing with his mom and bossing her around to his grand designs. Yeah, he's constantly giving direction. He's going to be a great GM later in his life.
Oh, of course. I wonder where he gets it from. Apple, tree, very short distance.
So he very much was trying to take the reins, just in a natural, didn't know where the limit of his part in the story was. So he was very much like, and then, and this, and, building onto his action, where I was just like, no, don't worry about that. Just tell me what you want to do. After like the first 3 minutes, like it clicked, and he was just like, and now we do the thing. He did not get upset when he failed because he saw that failure kind of pushed the story forward in a different, more interesting way. And it was really interesting how quickly he got it, how totally he got it, and how brief the game was. It took 25 minutes to go through this little story where there's this Pixar short, which is like about a train, like a sci-fi train in which there are robot workers tethered together. I can't think of the name of it, but this was obviously very much on his mind because there was a robot train, and he initially wanted his buddy to be like attached by this weird tether. And I was just like, no, we're not going to reenact that. Let's change it up. And we made it so that these robot drones from the floating city stole his friend Madtron, whose main characteristic is he's angry.
And from the mouths of babes.
And Ultratron had to go rescue him, and it was a very simple rescue mission. There was a little bit of fighting, a little bit of I don't think there's one point where he was already like trying to apply like the Blades in the Dark like flashback mechanic, where he was just like, oh, I should have gotten a gun. I was like, well, you didn't get a gun. So what are you going to do now? And he goes, okay, I'm going to hack the robot's mind. I was like, well, there you go. That's even better.
Even better.
And the best part was at the end where he was like he rescues Madtron, he releases him, and then in a flashback to the earlier part of the game where he was sort of like taking too much control of the narrative, he goes, and then a whole bunch of guys come in and try and stop him. So I was like, no, hold on, Jared. That's the next episode. Of course they're going to come in and try and stop you, but that's part 2. And he goes, okay, we'll play again. And then just ran off and did something else. It was awesome. It was so good.
I feel like we should have prefaced this episode on a very dad episode of the Vintage RPG podcast. Like, I think that's awesome. I mean, it's, genuinely hard, I think, for, again, I do not have any children. I now have a cat as a roommate, but, I watch my goddaughter grow up. I watch other friends raise their kids. And there's always that line where you're like, you see the parents that are very much in the mindset of like trying to make their kids like the stuff that they like so they don't have to stop doing it or put it on pause so they can like, so, because they have to like sit here now and watch like, hold on a second here. Come on. You pick a spot to stay. If you want to be on the podcast, you got to like pick a spot to stay. Why don't you like make the meowing noises like the cat on My Favorite Murder and make us money? No? Okay. So they have to like, they impress it upon their children to avoid having to like put it on pause and watch Cocomelon all the time, you know?
Yeah.
Why, like, you see, like, oh, my kid loves this band. It's like, your kid doesn't love that band. Come on, son. Like, your kid barely likes Kids Bop. They're still into the Wheels on the Bus. And that's okay. Like, I think it's, a very okay thing for, parents to accept that the kid needs time to grow their own interests and just kind of figure it out. Like, they don't need to like the things that you like. And I think that there is equally a reward to watching to see what they get into and like watching to see like why they like it and how they respond to it, So, there's a beauty to both ends of it, I think. And I think that like when a kid is like, hey, I want to try this, or like, because you have the Clubhouse. Let's be real. Like, of all the people who listen to the show who are like dying to go into the Clubhouse, there is a pint-sized little dude who like lives in that Clubhouse, who is not like a gnome or a halfling. He's a human boy, and he's constantly surrounded by all these like amazing things. So of course, on his own, he's going to come to, oh, I wonder what this does. And the fact that like you get to experience that with him it's special. It's special because it's something he comes to try out on his own, and he just responds to, and it's a great entryway into this world of role playing for him. That's going to be like kind of rich and not off-putting by trying to like explain, like, I made the joke about Thaco in the beginning of like, but like, D&D with modifiers and all this other stuff, it's still like you can't like play that with a 5-year-old kid.
No, absolutely not.
You're doing a modifier at best, and I think by using like smaller dice and not the D20 is like a fantastic way to introduce children to the idea of rolling dice as a mechanic, especially when one, two fails. Anything above that is a pass. Like, it's good. I think this is cool. Like, I think this is such a cool idea, like in a style of play for a RPG in general.
I mean, one of the things that was super interesting to me was just how unburdened by everything this game is. Like, literally, the mechanical explanation takes up 1 page, and the rest of the book is just sort of guidance for teaching like parents how to kind of like how to do it if they're completely unversed in role-playing games. Like, I've been doing this for years, so I didn't really need the rest of the book, but I can see where like this hobby is weird. It's always been very hard to teach people about this hobby, but at the same time, it shouldn't have to be weird. Like, this book, it does a really good job of sort of breaking it down and getting rid of all of like because there's all of these like preconceived notions about role-playing games and what they are and how they work, when it really is, it always has been just a different way of playing pretend for adults.
That's it.
And I think that there was a point in time where people were very self-conscious about that, so they tried to make it more serious and weighty and like so that people wouldn't make fun of them, like it's just like, dude, you're playing with toy soldiers. It's fine. Like, toy soldiers are cool. But I think that a lot of that stuff has just become ingrained in the way we approach these games. It was really refreshing to just kind of have it be like, make up whatever story you want, lean on any kind of like stories that you like this Pixar movie or whatever, Star Wars, this, that, and the other thing. Just have fun with it. And like, don't worry about like, is it mechanically like satisfying? like just tell a cool story, have fun, and literally don't make a big deal out of it is the other thing that is my big takeaway. Like, it's literally designed to be played 20 to 30 minutes because the kid's attention span isn't much longer than that,
Yeah. And at age 5, they've only seen like 4 things. So like the well to draw off of ain't that deep.
You'd be surprised. My kid watches a lot of TV.
Yeah, I know most kids watch a lot of TV. I watched a shit ton of TV as a kid. I think it's cool, man, because, we always talk about accessibility in the hobby, right? And again, I love Dungeons and Dragons with the fire of 1,000 burning suns. However, there's a lot of legacy behind that. It's about to turn 50. Yeah. And, when someone steps up to the plate to play an RPG for the first time, it can be daunting. Not even the rule set. It's just the expectation, the idea of what Dungeons and Dragons is to the hobby and as a cultural experience. Whereas like something like this, something like, other lighter RPG fare where the money is in like you doing the things you want to do and minimally rolling dice might be a better experience for the first time, but you don't have the brand recognition of playing like Dungeons and Dragons. That's why for me, it goes back to like, as much as I'm a major fan of legacy numbering in comic books, I get why they do new number one issues like every so often. Like it's a new number one because they want to give you a point that doesn't feel daunting to have to come in and be like, well, this is number one of this story, but this is like issue 1000 of Spider-Man. Also, happy 85th birthday, Superman. Been around for a long time. Yeah. Yesterday, the day before we record this, was the 85th birthday of Superman. And I think that's cool. And I think that, it was either Batman 1000 or Action Comics 1000. My brain is pudding. But like, you roll up to a comic book store and you see this is the 1000th issue of a comic. You're like, I no, like that's a lot to kind of come in at the 1000th issue. But like you roll up to a newsstand and you see, oh, it's issue 2, 3. You're like, oh, okay, I like this. I only have to pick up 2 other issues to get the full story. I'll give it a shot. Yeah. So, I think that there is a beauty to having a entry point to any hobby that doesn't make you feel like you got to take, a advanced college course to be able to understand it. So this is cool. I think this, from everything you described to me, I think it's a fantastic way to introduce young people, like, kids who are like 5 and whatnot. He's 5 now, right? He's almost 6.
He's 5.
Yeah, he'll be 6 this year. And also like to anybody, it seems like it's for kids. It is for kids, but like, this is a great way to get people's feet wet to enter this hobby. And then build yourself up. You don't go and fight like the champ first time you step into the ring. You gotta like work your way up with the jobbers and get to the top. So this is cool, man. You have any final thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, like as much as this is like it's geared for kids, specifically ones that don't necessarily know how to read or read well, there's nothing stopping an adult who's never played a role-playing game from making this their first role-playing game. Like it is really good, I think, in that respect, just because like it gives you the basics with very little sort of system specific or school of thought specific kind of stuff to burden you with. I think just even reading through it will kind of sort of reset your role-playing brain a little bit about what we do these things for and the best way to kind of approach them. I was surprised at how player centric it is, in that like the game master is running the story, but it really is for the kid. So and like I'm bringing a lot of that, like that positioning to the West Marches game that we're doing in the, like, it's really like I'm putting as much of like the reasoning and the push of it like is going to be player driven, and I'm just going to kind of respond and keep that going. It's like it's about like kind of keeping those plates spinning,
right?
Not about getting into my own china cabinet. It's a great book, and I think that anybody with a kid should definitely think about checking it out if they're looking to introduce a kid to role playing games. But I also think that it's an interesting sort of reset button for just generally how you approach running games.
Well, hell yeah. So this is another amazing episode of the Vintage RPG Podcast. Stu, where can the people find you on the internets?
They can find me on the Instagram, which is it's all right there, I guess.
Yeah.
If you sign in once a week and check out my account, that's a pretty good thing. You don't need to see friends or reels or anything else. You can just see some cool old role-playing books at Vintage RPG.
Hit the following button. You'll actually be able to see it in your feed. Make sure you like the post. Make sure you share the post, because when you do that, Instagram might let you see it regularly. I don't know, because we're not making reels.
You gotta comment, and you gotta there's like a little thing where you can archive it for later, and you can sign up so that you get notified when I post. You can do all of those things, and I'd be happy for it.
Because Instagram sure makes it hard to see something that you're not paying for.
Boy, lately.
Cheese and crackers. Also, Stu, I want to mention over at Exalted Funeral, you have a pamphlet adventure.
I do.
Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about that? Because we're terrible about promoting your stuff.
It's true. It's like the thing I least like to do. Yeah, it's a trilogy of pamphlets. It's a system for giving. It's a system. You can basically bolt it onto anything that you're playing, and give your players an opportunity to have their death foretold. And then when they encounter a situation in which that matches that prophecy, there's a whole bunch of mechanical things you can do to make it feel like the prophecy is pulling them to their doom. It's real lighthearted stuff.
So cool. Feels good.
3 pamphlets, $12, using a lot of art from Hans Holbein's Dance of Death. So from the 1500s. Very cool.
Very cool. I mean, you're going to shop at Exalted Funeral anyway, so, why not pick up the pamphlets that Stu has created? You can also get my books over at Exalted Funeral, 3-2-1 Action. Everything that we've released physically so far is over there. And speaking of 3-2-1 Action, right now, my latest Kickstarter is live. It is a holiday action double feature. There is an adventure called Hard Times on the Back Nine where you actually play mini golf against the devil with legitimate mini golf rules for 3-2-1 Action. And there's Kevin Saves Christmas, where you will bring history's greatest heroes through space and time as a amphibious fish person to fight Krampus on the island of Point Nemo. $20 gets you 2 books, 2 PDFs, a pamphlet adventure, and if you're in the US, it is going to be media shipping. So if you want to buy any add-ons, you will not pay an extra dime for shipping with that. Canada, international shipping is what it is, and I feel bad having to charge what I have to charge for shipping, but shipping is what it is. I don't set the rates, but I really do want you to pick up the books. Holiday Action double feature on Kickstarter right now, running through May 4th. And that's what I got to say about the things I need to promote. And if you like this show, we love that you listen to the show. If you like the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Your reviews really do help other listeners to find us. If you really like the show, why not become a patron? Patreon.com/vintagerpg. You get early release episodes. At some point on Friday, unless there is a catastrophic event or we have to record later in the week because an interview pops up, at some point on Friday, you get the episode ahead of the people who get it on Monday, or, ahead of the people who get it when our podcast provider decides to put it up, because we apologize that y'all had to wait to like almost Tuesday the other week because, it just didn't post, even though it's been there since friggin' Thursday. But anyway, you get it early. You get a behind-the-scenes look at everything that Stu is producing. You get a behind-the-scenes look at 3-2-1 Action. You get the ability to play games with us. At certain tiers, we run games for our patrons, and we'd love to have you sitting at our virtual table. And we've got a killer Discord community that we'd love for you to be a part of. Patreon.com/vintagerpg. So for Stu Horvath, I'm John Hambone McGuire. May the dice always roll in your favor.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Every review helps other listeners to find us. The Vintage RPG Podcast is a ham-fisted production. Music by Dega West. Art by Schaefer Brown. If you like the podcast, you should also consider becoming a patron at patreon.com.